Two 400 to 450 square metre blocks in the Character Residential 1 zone with a pre-1947 dwelling sitting smack bang in the middle. Have you ever seen a situation like this and thought, I wonder what the development options could be? Well, stay tuned because that's exactly what we're going to cover off in this video. For some reason, we've received a bucket load of inquiries about this exact situation recently. People see the second lot and they automatically assume that they can build a second dwelling on the property. Unfortunately, the reality is, more often than not, these sites are only good for use as a single dwelling. There is no development potential. To help you understand why, I'm going to talk through the 4 options that people typically come to me with. So let's start with option number 1, demolition. In this situation, people typically say to me, can we just demolish the entire house? Or, can we pick it up and relocate it to an alternate site? The idea being that once that house is gone, you then free up both lots for 2 new dwellings. Alternatively, what they say to me is, can we just chop off the side of the house? Typically a sunroom or a veranda. Or, could we take a little bit off both sides of the dwelling? Or as one client once said to me, can I just take the guts out of the middle of the house and then squish it together? The idea being that once the house is actually reduced in width, you can pick it up and move it onto one of the blocks, freeing up the second block for a new house. Unfortunately, partial demolition, full demolition, demolition of any kind is a politically sensitive issue for council. They've been under a lot of pressure in recent years to preserve pre-1947 dwellings in their original state. As a result, I can pretty much guarantee that you will not receive approval from council for this outcome. Put simply, you are wasting your time and money by going down this path. It just won't work. So then we come to option number 2. Option 2 being reduced side setbacks. Now option number 2 involves essentially picking the house up, sliding it over, and then seeking approval from council to reduce the standard 1 metre small lot side setback requirements. Now the issue here is that council's under an obligation to ensure that any town planning approvals that they issue do not conflict with any related legislation. In this instance, it's the fire rating requirements under the building rules and regulations that cause us grief. These rules state that once the house is moved over onto the block, you need to have a minimum of 900 or 90 centimetres clearance between the OMP, outermost projection, eaves, and the fire source, the boundary. So basically, once the house is moved over, you need 90 centimetres, 900 millimetres clearance between the side of the house and the boundary. If you can't comply with the separation requirements, then your option basically is to fire rate the side facade. In super, and I mean super simple terms, what this means is ripping off the timber cladding from the side of the dwelling and replacing it with a fire retardant material. Then you need to fill in each of the windows down the side of the dwelling. Now, as we've already established in option 1 here, council's not a fan of any partial demolition works. Also, you think about it, if you fill in the windows down the side of that dwelling, it's going to create an uninhabitable or an unlivable outcome. It's just not going to work. Now, up until probably about a year ago, we did have one way of working around this. What we did essentially, let me just remove this house. What we would do is pick the house up and slide it over onto the block there. We would ensure that we had 900 clearance to that external side boundary. Let's say for argument's sake, we had 200 clearance on that boundary. Now, I should just take a side step for a second here. The purpose behind the fire rating requirements is to, I wouldn't say stop, but delay. Delay the spread of fire from one structure to the next structure. So if you create that physical separation between the structures, it's obviously going to slow things down, slow the movement of fire. If you can't create that 900 clearance to the side boundary, the way we worked around it was to propose what's called a 1.8 metre wide air and light easement, or an easement of support. So what we said is, okay, we physically can't create the 900 separation, but we'll use an easement to achieve the same outcome, to stop anyone from building within 1.8 metres of our dwelling. Sounds great in theory, right? Unfortunately, council's been burnt. So in recent years, there's been countless situations where these easements have been missed. The certifiers, the builders, whoever haven't picked up on them. As a result, these dwellings have been built within 1.8 metres of the existing dwelling. The reality is they just practically don't work. So they're good in theory, but the practical reality just doesn't stack up. So option 2 falls over because of the fire rating requirements. Let's move on to option number 3, realignment. Now, Option number 1 we covered off. That's probably the most common option that people first start with. Option number 3, I'd say, is the second most common option. In this situation, what people typically say to me is, can we pick the boundary up and move it over to the side, creating one fat lot and one skinny lot? The idea being that the existing house can then be moved across to sit on the fat lot. Or alternatively, what they say to me is, let's just get rid of this boundary, can we do a front and rear lot alignment? Ugh, if I get my words out, alignment. So you're basically creating a front lot which the existing house stays on, and then a rear lot at the back, which is vacant. And that's the one obviously you put the new dwelling on. The problem we've got here is that the council's minimum lot size requirements state that you need 450 square metres for a front lot and a minimum of 15 metres in width, as well as 600 square metres excluding the access way for rear allotment. So if you're moving that boundary sideways, you won't comply with the 15 metre minimum width requirement. If you do a front and rear alignment, you won't have the area to get the 450 at the front and the 600 at the rear. Keeping in mind that typically these blocks, more often than not, are 405 and 405 square metres, 810 square metres. Even if they're 449 and 449, it's not going to work. You're not going to have the minimum requirements. Now, the thing to keep in mind here is that council has absolutely no desire to break these rules, because it goes against their intent for the character residential 1 zone. Their intent being, essentially, let's take a step back. They believe that the big backyard is as important to the character of the area as the structure itself. So why would they want to support a proposal that seeks to reduce the size of the lots and therefore the size of the backyard? It goes against their intent. It just makes no sense. So that rules out option number 3. We then come to option number 4, which is the duplex. So as a last resort, people often say to me, okay, what if we keep the existing house there, amalgamate the allotments, so you create just one single lot, and then build a second block at the rear, or sometimes the side of the property, creating what's known as a duplex, 2 dwellings on the 1 block. The problem is, we come back to this, intent. The idea of having 2 separate dwellings on the 1 block goes against council's intent for this area. They want one house with a big backyard. So they're simply not going to support a duplex, I can tell you now. The only situation where you can develop these sites is if the existing dwelling is skinny. So if it can be picked up and relocated onto one of those existing blocks while still achieving compliance with council's 1 metre side setback requirements, then it doesn't trigger town planning approval. Council has no say over it. This is the only situation where you can develop these blocks. So just to recap, when people see these sites, they typically get very excited because they assume that 2 lots automatically means 2 dwellings. As we've discussed here today, the 4 options that people typically come to me with simply won't work. The only situation where you can develop these properties is if the existing house is already skinny enough to be able to move it onto one of the blocks and still have a 1 metre clearance between the side boundary and the wall of the house. I can tell you now, more often than not, these blocks are 10 metres in width, and the houses are always more than 8 metres. They're typically 8.5 or 9 metres in width. It is very rare to see a situation where the house is skinny enough to start with to fit onto one of those blocks. Now, if you've liked these videos, or this video I should say today, please like, comment, or better still, share the video. This will give me encouragement. It'll tell me that you're liking what I'm doing, and it'll encourage me to keep going. If I see radio silence below, I'll assume that I'm boring you, and I'll basically stop doing these videos. So it's very simple. If you want to see more videos, show me some love. Until next time, see ya.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got 3. Number 1, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number 2, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all. Bye.